and the fact that Dominic wouldn't be going to Arabic and wouldn't be going to French, you know, it then becomes very apparent that there's something different. And at that age, children are not very nice. Different teachers handle it in different ways. Schools handle it in different ways. Was it effectively handled while we were here? Jury's out on that. Because at one point, he believed, in fact, when we were living in Moscow, my son gave up. You were asking for that point. He was in year 1, and the teacher there was fresh out, had no experience of children with reading difficulties. He had come from a school in the UK, was struggling with his reading, and there were 4 different sets of reading programs. One was the Kipper books, one was this book, one was that book. And she put him back in the Kipper books, which he had been reading at school, to books he had read the year before. Now, he wasn't stupid, but he knew he had read these books. She could have achieved the same thing by giving him easier books, but doing it in one of the schemes he was unfamiliar with. But she had no experience at all of dealing with this. And that year, my son came home and told me he was stupid. Now, I worked with the headmistress at the school at the time. She'd pull him out and work with him. I now look back on it, and I wish I had taken him out of school. Dominic would have benefited so much more from being with me, going to the art museums in Moscow, going to the concerts, and not being in a classroom, because he came out of Moscow as a defeated child.
But if the child is growing up in an environment where parents are supporting the child, parents are saying, okay, it doesn't matter if you don't know how to spell, you know, I will read to you if you don't know how to read. Here are books on audio tapes. You know, we are in this together. The child grows up to feel confident and proud of he or she is.
Our saving grace for Dominic was books on tape, because they, without reading books of their own age level, you know, they're forced to read texts that are much younger, that therefore don't build their vocabulary in an appropriate level. And in order to rectify that, and also satisfy the need to hear stories that are targeted for their own age, to listen to books on tape or CD, you know, read aloud, is the most fantastic means. Because a child who doesn't have a reading difficulty can read that fairly small book several times over. If a dyslexic child reads it once themselves, it's a huge accomplishment. But in order to truly absorb it, they need it again. And for them to read the book again is such a huge process. But if they can listen to it again, they have the opportunity to truly absorb what's in there. Don't neglect it. We didn't want Dominic labelled, and we left it for a long time, even though I was aware very early on that he was dyslexic. I think had we labelled him earlier, he may have had a little bit more help, but because of our lifestyle, moving country to country, it was very difficult. You have to intervene with the dyslexia as early as possible, so that you don't wait to hear the magic words that I did at 13, when my son was studying for exams but got into a book, his first book, and he shouted to me in the kitchen, "Mum, I'll come when I finish the chapter." That is magic. You don't want to wait for that. You want to get in there. But the key thing as a parent is, because it is so frustrating to see your child hurt, to struggle, to put the hours in, is to have patience.
A teacher really has a lot of power in the classroom, and if there's one message I would like to give, it is that you know, the fate and the future of a child's life is in your hands. So just be kind and treat them with some compassion and love. For parents, I would like to say that you have to advocate for your child, and you also have to teach your child as he goes into college how to ask for help, and never feel shy of having a child with dyslexia.
Schooling is all about yes and no, everything's right or wrong, and that's what school is about. And you have subjects like maths and Latin and science, and for science and maths there's a right and a wrong answer, and that's it. And I was very, very frustrated because of my dyslexia. I was very frustrated by school and very frustrated by these academic subjects, and I wasn't very good at them, and I was at the bottom of my class. And I found it very difficult. It was only right or wrong. And then I was in the art school one day, and the teachers would say to the whole class, 30, 40 people, and they'd say, okay guys, we're going to paint this today, we're going to draw this. And it gave me this like massive sense of freedom, and it gave me this sense of the possibilities of expression and creativity, and it released something inside me which gave me my voice, and which released the frustration and gave a channel for the frustration. And it was very, very helpful. So art was this very key thing in my life, and that was a big turning point for me when I could see that schooling wasn't all about right and wrong, but it could be about a creative channel, and there was no limit to what you could achieve. And that was a very poignant moment. So from there, I started putting everything into my art. It's no longer necessary that the avenues we have are doctoring, lawyering, soliciting, banking. These avenues are actually, we're finding that things can go wrong in those careers just as any other career, and it's not as stable as you think. And your parents don't have to push you into these things. And I think parents are starting to see this as well. The dyslexic teaching doesn't work unless the pupil understands that they have a problem and wants to make the most of their life. If they think that they have a problem and it's like, oh, poor me, the world is treating me badly, and oh, then you'll never achieve anything, you'll just stay where you are. And if the dyslexia isn't realized at that stage, the child will only do that. That's what happens at school. That's what will happen. Because the child is bright and capable, but no one understands the problem, and they just go boof. And that's a real shame. We, as human beings, we reject things that we don't want to see and we don't want to hear, and we push them away. And we do the same with our children, often. And we do the same with disabilities. Normal children have a frustration level here. If you have a disability, mental or physical, your frustration goes here. If you're very dyslexic, your frustration level is up here as well. So then, that basic frustration that all children have is heightened through dyslexia. The trick that parents have to do, and the mistake that they always make, is to see frustration as a negative thing. And what they need to do is say, frustration is the most powerful, poignant tool my child possesses. I have to find out a channel for that frustration, to turn it into something positive, something glorious, something that creates. Because then, you're not pinning them down and doing this to them, you're doing that to them. So when you're a kid of 7 and you're dyslexic, try and find a channel for your frustration, and then the world is your oyster. Then you can go anywhere with that.